Hello, welcome to the next episode of Currency. Come on in and have a seat and watch me talk. Watch me work. Let me just get down to it, down to the nitty gritty. I was thinking about that song, I Can Only Imagine, Christian song. I feel like that is a medical condition. I can only imagine. That might be a problem for you. If you can, I would hate for it to get to that point for you or anybody. If you call a doctor immediately, if you can only imagine, if you or a loved one can only imagine, something is probably, I would wager that something went wrong there, that's not, because you should be able to do more than that. I can imagine, plus I can kayak, or like at least, plus I can choreograph an orchestra. I meant to say like orchestrate an orchestra of orcas. I can only imagine, and I can orchestrate an orchestra of orcas and other whales that in an instrument playing whales. See, I use my imagination for that one. It all lines up as long as you just have the patience to, well, I mean, not everybody can do that. It's just like the kind of person that's talking shit, no matter, even they can't stop themselves. I don't think that I'm that, only because I became aware too much. And so, like, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be the person that is talking shit every time you're talking. It's just there's stupid people and there's smart people, and like I'm one of the smart people, and that's all that I'm here to do is propagandize my own position. It's like, hooray, smart people, because I'm one of them according to me. But it's like the same as when I make an episode called Original and it doesn't get very many plays on the audio episode of it, because people don't want to click on it because they're like, what's this guy just going to talk about that he's original? And yeah, I kind of did, yeah, but like, sorry, I know that it's like a sin, that socially nobody should ever be saying that, but also I said I was the Antichrist, so, but I mean, not that just because it's on brand that would make it acceptable, but like, well, it's in line with what he was already doing, so it's on theme, so that makes him, because it's not, there are some consistencies that people don't care about. Or people be like, well, you have to be a consistent person, like have an identity so we know what you're doing, and then we have that thing to be confident in about you. We can go back to that. We can rely on you. We understand like there's security over here on this platform and whatever. Some consistencies, like my consistency, the consistency of always joking is not a consistency that people find reliable enough. Or, I don't know. There's people aren't smart enough to realize that lying all the time is still consistent behavior. And it's just like it's me against the dumb people. But I'm saying that same as claiming originality, that's as unattractive as it is for people to hear. It's like claiming smartness. You don't get to be like, yes, I am intelligent, and that is part of the deal, because the whole thing is like, oh, you're not aware enough to realize that you're actually dumb, because it's only the stupid people that would tell everybody like I'm smarter for sure, because we all the smart people know that all of us are the same amount of dumb or something like that, because we live in a world dictated by communist societies, and we live in a world that is dictated by socialism, and that is the world that is dictated in all of that. But what I wanted to say, I just wanted to get further into, like, I didn't know that I would end up keep talking about when I said I was the Antichrist, but is dominating the headlines of my life. So let me explain further why I did that. I'm bipolar, and I've explained that even before the episode. I said I'm the Antichrist. I'm bipolar, and it's kind of like being born again, which I can claim as the reason, even though that sounds ridiculous. Being born again, it made me two people. It's kind of like that does describe the two halves of the person that I am, and basically the person that I was born to begin with wasn't Christian, but then he got covered up by the born again person. The person I was born as second is who I lived as for very many years. And then the other guy I was born as to begin with, like the sinner, he came back, and he hatched a plan to like kill the first guy. And that's what that is, me saying I'm the Antichrist. Because after the fact, half of me is mortified about saying that. The other half of me is like, all right, another notch in my belt, now I'm the Antichrist. But it is kind of like that. I am like two halves of a person. But you're not. I'm split in half, and that will have to do. Noah Khan. Kahan. Noah Khan. And it's just that, like, there's not like, yes, I'm two halves of a person, and now accept me as I go about my life. Or it's like, that's a real thing that people experience, because you say that and people will be like, well, yeah, sure. As if what I've heard back about it is like, well, everybody is like that. It's not true. Some people are more like that than other people. It's kind of like everybody is biased, everybody's influenced. No, what the value of the word biased there is a lot of value to be found in the word biased or the word influenced, but you would lose all of it if you just let yourself say, well, everybody's influenced. But like, there's a lot of value in influence when you try to recognize how some people are more influenced than others, because that's not a way that people end up using the term ever. It's like, oh, that person is very influenced, or like they're more biased, because it paints a much broader picture, or just like very informative, because people aren't using like biased to communicate how some people are a lot more biased. They're a lot more just like influenced than other people are. They're not originators of anything, because there's some people that are like, they look like an originator, but ultimately they're just biased. But everybody's biased. You can get by, but anyway, like bipolar, there are some people that are more bipolar than others. And my bipolar is such that the two people are like in a war. But the Christians individually all think that I'm talking about them because they're so narrative centric. They think that the story is about them. I'm the same way. They're narcissists. I want to say maybe it's as a result of having to live a life of communism, and they're just like, they have to suppress all of that narcissism. Be like, I'm very loving and caring. I mean, they have to suppress all their individualism. A lot of them, depending on how given over they are to selling out for the title Christian, that makes them like everybody else. I bet that a lot of people in the church, like Christian men, have to suppress a lot of narcissism to follow Christ. Like, I think, to be honest with you, that this theory holds some weight, or holds some water. I don't know if holds some water is that a right way of saying that. This theory, I think, is right. I think that Christian people, they're more paranoid. Like, they make the thing about themselves more than other people. They think you're talking about them. That's what I'm saying. Christians or religions, people in religions, they think that you're talking about them. So they like get all personal about it, I think it's because they're suppressing their narcissism so much. I don't want to try to get into explaining why the extracurricular ideas surrounding that. I don't want to get into that. Whatever peripherally is related, whatever comes with that, I don't want to get into talking about it. Because like 2 billion fans, as long as I'm just like, yeah, I'm the Antichrist, of course. Like, I don't know. I think like it might happen that way because I mean, it might be. So, but anyway, like, I'm just here to propagandize myself and tell you that I'm valuable as usual. That's what this hour is about. It's just like this position in life of this individual person. I'm talking about individualism. I'm not married. Not that oh, goodness fucking honest to crap. Honest to crap, I wasn't recording on the mic for the first beginning of that, but that's all right because I have my iPhone recording of my audio. And so the audio will improve at about 23 minutes in. I'm just here to tell you that my position is valuable, but I don't want to get in the way of what would naturally be coming out of my mouth this evening. I don't want to be controlling, be superstitious. I don't want to be superstitious, I don't want to stand over the words, you know? So that they come out in a controlled way that makes it worse. People like that less. It's less authentic. It's just like but you do have to be sort of control. I do have to filter it and curate it for sure. I have to curate it after. I'm trying to curate it less, like edit it less. I'm trying. But it's just so lucrative to edit it because there'll be like 15 minutes at the beginning of the hour that's like, oh, I didn't say fucking anything, and then I can just like get rid of it instead of leaving it in. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I take the best 60 minutes of like a 75-minute taping? You know, it's I don't know. Maybe people, whatever. But I wanted to say that you can abstract your hatred into politics. And what about people who hate? And that it's always love, and it's not even like a conservative or a liberal thing. It's just kind of like this, it's a communist ideal. You see it on TV all the time, even in the secular world. People be like, choose love. Hate is always hated. It's kind of just like a product of the obvious world we live in, the literalist world, where people refuse, I don't know, they're just like, no, the word literally, and there's nothing to go outside of that is a conspiracy theory. Like, there's nothing to be found in hate besides hatred. There's nothing to be found in love besides love. So choose love. Make it simple. Don't make it complex. It's a product of it's a result of religious influence. Simplicity. Don't make it complicated. That's a conspiracy. Complexity is a conspiracy. That's what conspiracy theory is. It's just like complexity. Don't get into uncertainness, like the territory of evaluating hatred on the outside of it to say, well, there's good and bad about hatred. There's good and there's bad about being mean, because Steve Jobs was like mean to invent the iPhone. And unless you're like inventing the iPhone, society doesn't want to hear from you because they're like, you're mean, or you're espousing negativity, you're sharing negativity. To be mean, to be outside of the group enough to like go into the world where, well, I'll invent something that the group has never seen before. You have to go outside of the group to do that. You have to be a capitalist, an individualist. You have to be mean. And unless you are like the best of capitalists, society is going to be mean to you. They're going to hate you, and that's the whole thing. Is like it's a two-way street. You don't get to just have love. Hatred makes love what it is. Love makes hatred what it is. You can't. It's like the society that is so loving, the community that is so loving, like all the people that are on the side of love that you see on the commercials, where they're like, well, who the fuck is putting out these commercials that they're just, oh, we got 20 different people, some of them celebrities, to say love, choose love, as if we didn't already know that. Same thing as why college football broadcasters on ESPN have been dog shit every day of my life, is that they just say the same things that everybody else is saying. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're saying what everyone else says, but it's not. That's not the thing I'm talking about. There's no. They do it right, and that's evident. Even though they're like saying similar rhetoric about a football game, they're like, whatever, they're being original, or they're just speaking to the situation authentically and correctly. ESPN college football broadcasters, for the last 25 years, they are terrible at their job. They don't speak to the situation accurately, and if they do, they're just repeating something that is just the trend of like, this is what's trendy to say right now, like leadership and leadership and whatever it is. Just their gay little platitudes that they repeat, that ESPN, whatever, college football broadcaster, just like, that's the problem that I have is we already know that. And so you shouldn't be in the broadcast booth. I just get jealous. Like, I want to be the broadcaster because I would say something original, but it's more just like, couldn't you find fucking anybody besides this idiot that's just like says all the same things, like, get somebody who, there's got to be enough people that can integrate the crowd's reaction correctly into like the way that it happened, rather than all these people that are just there's all these broadcasters that are inept about the narration. I mean, the logistics of like the narration, like the refs and the way that the refs play against the crowd, play against the players, whatever. Like, I don't know. They just get talentless morons in the broadcast booth for a lot of pro sports or in college sports for whatever reason. But that's what I'm angry at, is just the unoriginality. Get some people, because these are the people most responsible for the narration of the game. Broadcaster. People totally underestimate the power of broadcasters forever. And they never point out that broadcasters are conspiring with the refs. And whatever it is. Never mind any of that. It's really just like same thing as CNN and MSNBC is like what network TV broadcasters do to the game. They try to squash all the alternative narratives that might arise about the game, and they try to make it all about their own narrative. Though shitty broadcasters even take away narratives from the crowd or get angry at the crowd. Kirk Herbstreit, pretty good at his job. I mean, he's elite at his job. But he's annoying to me because he gets angry at the crowd. He tries to take away narratives from the crowd. Anybody that got pissed when there was that college football game between Texas and whoever, where Texas got a pick six and the refs called like a pass interference and took it away in front of the Texas home crowd, took away a pick six that Texas got. And the crowd went ape shit and they started throwing shit on the field, so much so that the refs went back out on the field and they were like, no, actually we called that wrong and it's fine. We were wrong. And it was basically, the crowd decided, like it's ancient, like gladiators in Rome. And that's the way that it should be. Nobody should have a problem with that happening one time out of a million times. there were actually like a million times where the crowd got pissed at a call and they didn't call it back. It happened one time where the refs listened to the crowd, and every analyst on like Fox and whatever after the fact, all of the ESPN people on First Take and all of their gay little shows, all of the broadcasters, football broadcasters, got the same opinion, which was that everybody got so morally indignant, like self-righteous about, oh, the crowd should never be given the choice. Like, how dare they be able to throw shit on the ground, and that the rest would, I don't know. But Kirk Herbstreit was especially angry about that. But he's somebody who's like so narcissistic that he just like tries to make the entire narrative just like what he's saying. Like, he's really good at that. And so that is why he is an enemy of mine, because he I don't know, he just like centralizes the narration on himself too much, and it really should be more about the given over to the fans. But like, it really just, the broadcast booth should be decentralized, and it will be over time, so that it's the narrative should just be, there shouldn't really be a broadcaster, maybe, I don't really know, but it's like, yeah, for some reason everybody was in complete agreement that the refs did the wrong thing by listening to the crowd or admitting that they were wrong, you know? They're like, no, the refs are always right. That's what they're fucking angry at. But it's just because all these broadcasters that are worried, they're threatened by the crowd taking the narration away from them. That's all that it is. They're propagandizing their own positions. They're up there telling you why they're valuable, just them individually. Like, at the end of the day, ultimately, the broadcasters, it's about them and their family and the money that they're making, whatever, their legacy that they're leaving. That's the way that people are. They can only broadcast their own position. These broadcasters are threatened that the crowd is starting... What if the crowd was able to dictate other things? Or what if the crowd got more influence? They're worried. And so every single analyst is in agreement, like, oh, no, the refs are always right. You know, that's what it is at the end of the fucking day. But they got to squash the narratives on Twitter, alternative media, where Twitter is saying, oh, the refs are liars, or they're fixing games. But in response to, there's been a lot of noise about that on Twitter the last like 5 years, and it's been increasing. In response to that, network TV has commanded all of their broadcasters to say that the refs are right no matter what, and just like don't. I mean, they'll say that they're wrong like 5% of the time just to make it look like it's not a conspiracy or whatever, but it's a concerted effort and it's obvious and whatever. And so then there's a playoff game recently between the Chiefs and Texans where where Twitter boiled over on this subject, and they're like, no, the refs fixed that game or whatever. It's because people hate Taylor Swift enough. You know, and if that's what's going to do it, if that's what's going to galvanize our support as a nation, as a world, against the referees, then good on Taylor Swift for that. She accomplished yet another thing. Taylor Swift is bringing the referees, she's destroying the referees. Because people hate Taylor Swift so much, they're against the Chiefs so much that they're willing to be like, no, the refs are fixing the game for the Chiefs. They're fixing it for Taylor Swift. Even though I really don't think that is happening at all. That is, it's yeah, she might factor in Taylor Swift for why they're fixing it for the Chiefs. But if Taylor Swift destroys referees, I will love Taylor Swift that much more. Did I love her already? No. Like, she's great. I like all of the artists, you know? I respect their shit that they're doing. There was a time in my life when I was younger where I was cynical about just, like, singers and whoever. All of them are doing good, you know, to be where they are. Cardi B and all of that shit. There's, like, Cardi B, there's, like, 2 Chainz, you know. Waka Flocka Flame. You know, there's things like that. Pitbull. Sorry, I shouldn't. I don't know. That's going a little far. To not be cynical towards Pitbull. To like say, no, he's an artist. Like, he respect the game, respect where he got. I don't know. That's kind of just crossing all kinds of ethical lines and boundaries. To not be sarcastic about Pitbull at least a little bit. To be like, no, Pitbull's a respected artist. That's just like, where somebody's dying of starvation somewhere as a result of me saying that, I'm pretty sure. Some Pitbull is mauling a kid to death every time somebody takes Pitbull's side. Every time somebody ignores that Pitbull is silly. Every time someone ignores that Pitbull is silly, a kid gets mauled to death by a real Pitbull. You know. And so that's kind of one of the issues in society, in our communities. Yeah. Speaking of communities and the help that they need, maybe if people would be a little bit more sarcastic towards Pitbull, then we wouldn't have so many Pitbull deaths from, yeah. So what I wanted to say was, I'm talking about love and like the liberal conservative aspects of love. I love love. Why the fuck do they make these commercials that people are like, love? We already know that. Why do you spend $500,000 to broadcast this? What is behind this fucking nonsense blue pill matrix ass? Like, oh, yes, we are all on the side of love. Where they just say, choose love. Choose love? Love is a specific thing. So, no, choose love, that doesn't make any, like, that's just such a general thing because, like, I've got deodorant in the camera shot. I've got to put on deodorant. So, like, when it comes to putting on deodorant, what am I going to do? Choose love? If I chose love in that situation, I wouldn't be wearing deodorant that day. Because, like, love is a specific thing. It doesn't have anything to do with most things. Like, choose love. So it doesn't have any practical application. It doesn't make sense to apply that very many times or very many places. Even when you're talking to people, what they mean, they're talking about interpersonal relationships. They're talking about personal relationships. They're talking about people. All that they're saying is be a communist. Make it about the community. Give yourself over to other people. Share. Be generous. Like, be a liberal. Something like that. Share. CHER. She's pretty liberal. As coincidentally. It makes sense. Her name is Cher. She understood the assignment. But I want to say it, like, half the people in the world are haters. They're given over to hatred. And that's what got me on this topic, is just like, maybe I kind of like the hate, or like I'd like 2 billion fans like ridiculing me. Like, maybe I could be somebody who would get by not caring about that, potentially. Like somebody who likes the haters enough, only because I'm more on the hater side of things than the loving side of things. But it's like, there are so many people like me, I can't be the only one, but nobody is broadcasting anything pro-hatred. And it's just like, you just get all these messages about like, oh, just be, don't be outside of it enough to evaluate the differences between love and hate. Like, don't look at this intelligently. Just take it at face value as stupidly and as simply as possible every single time. Love is good. I heard love. And if you react in a way, it's like you start saying there's nuances to love, or that some of it might be bad. But it's like, it's pretty clear as day. It's not that hard to get to a place where you say that love is bad. Love is bad because it's suffocating. It's because it's communist. It robs you of your individuality. It's not, like, to the extent that socialism, the negatives about that, the way that people describe that's bad. It's the same as you would describe love to be bad, because it's a communist ideal. So, like, does nobody care that it's a communist thing? it's just about like, oh, making yourself more connected. Nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is like always, but it's dictated by religions. Besides that, like religions are functional communism, that they're like run off of communities. The simplicity of it, like the same as make your life as simple as just reduce it to I like Jesus, and then you don't have to fight for anything because you're on the side of the guy who won the contest that the world is revolving around. You're already you like just make it about Jesus. Make it as simple as possible. Go because when in church, I don't know, maybe they like to think that what they're doing is very complicated when they like go and look at a Bible passage and like say 40 different things about it. It's not more complicated than like the world, because the world doesn't reduce their thing to a single book. Like the world gets to include the Bible and the Quran and 40,000 other books and 50,000 TV shows. So like the Christianity, just by comparison, is a lot more simpler than the world. And that simplicity is you see how the secular world is influenced, and there's like we pretend that there's a separation between church and state. Communism is probably most popularly espoused by religions, and then you get communist ideals about love coming through just completely pop culture everywhere. That's what everybody has decided. Hate is bad. Even Donald Trump, who is like a futurist, conservatives that are like, oh, we're the people of the future now, or whatever, they aren't like, oh, hate is good. But I'm saying like love gets all the positive press, the same way that, generally speaking, before Elon Musk bought Twitter, liberalism was getting a lot of positive press. I mean, like, this thing is not conservative or liberal, because no group of people has decided or been able to argue that hate is good. And so hate is always hated. But I'm saying, like, what about people like me who want hatred, who like hatred, because I like love? And it's like people would say, oh, you're a deficient human being. There's something wrong with you because you don't love. Or it's like, and yes, maybe I do have permanent emotional problems, but I think that the person like me who has the level of emotional problems that I do, I just make friends with other people who are also like insensitive or also on the hater side of things. It's just like hate is it's what makes you mean. It's what makes you original. Like you have to, in order to be against the group, you have to be an individualist. Besides that, like the specifics of things, it's just like, it's a social world. It's communist societal world is what all of my evidence suggests to me. It's not really capitalist at the end of the day, especially for regular people, especially not in the corporate world, or in other words, just the real world. The regular ass world is so run off of socialism because you only get to be hateful, like, politically. Like, if you hate your neighbor, this is a point that I had in mind to make before the beginning of the episode. And so what I wanted to say was that it's like, if you hate your neighbor, you don't get to go around telling people, like, I hate my neighbor for these reasons. That all of the hatred that people get, because it's not accepted, all of that hatred goes to politics. So, like, if you fucking hate your neighbor, what you are allowed to do in society is go on Twitter and start talking shit about the Democratic Party. Like, that doesn't necessarily make sense. It's just that that's the way that society allows you to abstract. You can abstract your hatred into politics. You can give it over to that, this big ass general thing. And that's what all of that hate is. It's like specific hatreds. It's like, it's barely about the Democrats. It's barely about the Republicans. It's just all these people, they're not allowed to communicate their specific hatreds because that's a problem in society. That's too specific. It's too individualist. So it's like, unless you are inventing an iPhone alongside of that, we don't care about your hatreds. We were just like, oh, you're a complainer because, I don't know, the negativity, like specific negativity, it's not popular enough that anybody's going to listen to you. But I mean, I guess that's what your family and friends are for, or something, or something like that. I mean, yes, obviously you can communicate that to your loved ones, the people that you're connected with. And that's not lost on me. I do that as well. I communicate my specific hatreds to my friends. So I don't know exactly what I'm saying. Like, is this a problem? Because you can just communicate, I hate my neighbor too. I'm just saying, like, that does happen where it just, like, if you hate them enough, you're going to have to exhaust that hatred into a few different sources. Like the Liberal and the Democratic Party, they get a lot of that hate. For me, a lot of my specific hatreds, I just give it to the term like Christianity. Where I'm like, I blame them. Where it's like, I'm not getting into the specifics of what I hate so much, but it's like politically correct to, or in public, like while I'm recording myself, to make it about a general thing. And that's and because people have to do that in public. So I'm saying, like, in private, you can communicate your specific hatreds, but they happen in private. Publicly, where all the press is, where it's like love is good. That's all communist. It's less accepted to be an individualist publicly. That's why I don't get hundreds of thousands of views. Because of my individualist nature. But like, if I start getting into the specifics of whatever, then you don't care. But like, I don't know that this last thing that I've been saying, like the last 5 minutes, is a problem, or if it's just like yeah, that's obvious. Because like, of course, it's a thing between public and private life, and like, I bring value to this discussion that basically nobody else does. The divide between public and private life. It's like the separation between public and private is supposed to be separate, but it's not at all. But what I do, like, I go out here and talk about my family, like, publicly. Most people don't do that. Or like, I give a platform to my personal issues as an individualist, and I make it public. I am a leader in this area in some regard of destroying the divide between public and private life. Because like, this is just these are just my private whatever thoughts. Like, it comes closer to specific hatreds than most people are ever sharing publicly. I share more specific individualist shit and make it public. But it's just maybe, so like, what's the issue? The issue is something about, oh, you have to talk to your therapist when you're bipolar, you know, like, that's where because that problem is too specific that you're not allowed to make that public, and it has something to do with the way that things are run communally, the communist world that we live in. It's like, you can only say that, you have to say that in private to a therapist. There's not enough popular support for like a real bipolar person, because I'm not supposed to be like proud of it or say it in any positive regard. It's the same as like the Antichrist. That one is even worse. That one's much harder to take on. You're just like, you're not gonna say that and then like be jokey about it or whatever. Bipolar, it's the same as that. Like, you're expected to not make certain things public, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's some of the value that I bring to you and to this world, to my Facebook community, to the communities that I'm a part of, is that make those things that you thought you're only supposed to be private, make them public. Why do I lead in this area? It's because naturally it's just my presence. That's my presence. I don't intend that. I don't think about it. That's just what results. That's just what results from my position in life, who I am, the value that I bring. I am breaking down the barriers between public and private life, among other things. I propagandize my own position. Even just saying propaganda is a positive. Propaganda is a positive, folks. No lie, no BS, no bullshit. No bullshit. Propaganda is propagation. That's what it is. The same as the sun propagates radiation. The same as the sun propagates photons, folks. Same as a light source propagates photons. I propagate sound waves. I propagate. That's what everybody is doing. Every podcaster, everyone publicly, sending, broadcasting from their platform, sending shit forward. They're propagating. All of it is propaganda. And propaganda is pro. It is a positive. It is not a negative. Propaganda is a positive. The only way that it's so stigmatized in the world of propaganda is bullshit is because it's an individualist characteristic. Is because it's like a narcissistic thing. It's narcissistic to propagate. We don't want to get into the territory of saying propagation is all right because then people will think. So what happens is like there becomes this official narrative about propaganda where whoever it is just takes the most negative things that have happened with regard to it and says like that's what propaganda is. Like Nazi Germany, they propagandized in Nazi Germany. Oops. Except that they propagandize everywhere. Mercy Me was propagandizing like fucking crazy when they made that song I Can Only Imagine. And that's what, I mean, I guess they didn't perform it anywhere. They must not have done a concert series with that song. I mean, they must not have sung that anywhere besides their own imagination, right? Because they're being completely truthful and accurate when they make a song. That's what songs are about. It's just like the honesty of the words. I can only imagine. That's why they didn't even write that song. They didn't even make it. Did I imagine that? Shit, did I imagine that? Because like how else could they write that if I can only imagine? If they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to like put that into words or make the music behind it. Now I'm saying I can only imagine. I think I wrote it. I don't know. It's a mind fuck. Mercy Me is a real mind fuck. I'll tell you that. Mercy my mind. Mercy Me, I can only imagine. Anyway, Mercy Me. No, Mercy Me. Not you. Me. Mercy Me. It's okay. Mercy West Hospital, whatever it is. But seriously, propaganda is a pro because it's propagation. It's just like if you're sharing your position, this is sharing, this is generous. It's a pro. But it's just like propagation is a word with too much utility. That people are comfortable with it. People are uncomfortable with how much utility propagation has. So they got to make propaganda, oh, that's bad. Propaganda's bad. And disassociate propaganda from propagation. Don't let anybody know that it's a pro. It's just you telling everybody what you're all about. No, that's evil. Because then people individually will get it in their heads like, oh, that's a positive, And so there's this official narrative against individualism. It has to do with that Christianity leads the charge in in molding and shaping the narration, and then what results are a lot of hatreds toward individualist characteristics and ideals. And but tell you what. Telluride. Is that a Kia? A Telluride? I think that it is, because Kia is the only car company shitty enough that they would call one of their cars a Telluride. I hope I'm not wrong. Killed in action. Kia. Sia and a Kia. There's some like local shit that's their tagline. Some local Kia dealership, their tagline is Sia and a Kia. And like if you died in a Kia, like you crashed into a tree and you're dead, like Sia in a Kia, you know, that's where I'll see you, dead on the side of the road in a Kia. That's where I'll see ya in a Kia. That one's not so funny. Sorry. I just kind of like I don't like Kias, but so that's kind of another thing that I do. C isn't propagation. Great. Isn't it awesome? I guess people were right. Propaganda sucks because I'm just propagandizing. You know what I'm all about? I hate Kias. You know what I'm all about is that I hate Kias. And so that's kind of, that about sums it up. That's what all of this shit was about the entire time, all this shit I'm talking about on this podcast. It's actually just comes down to a hatred for Kias, Kia dealers and dealerships. Tellurides. Tell you ride. Anyway, what should I talk about? Should I talk about Ben Avery or Elizabeth Holmes? I wanted to talk about I'll talk about Ben Avery maybe at the beginning of the next one because that's more interesting. It's just like I wanted to compare myself to Elizabeth Holmes. I love the Elizabeth Holmes story. And I think that people, for some reason, people want to be see what I'm doing. They want to call me a fraud. And so what I wanted to do was say, yes, I am kind of like Elizabeth Holmes, but the product is what it is. Because I just talk about a word for an hour. Everything I talk about, I have authority over because the thing I title it is a word that I talked about during that hour. That's the product that I put out on this podcast. For this podcast, if this hustle for me is it's the same thing as Theranos for Elizabeth Holmes. I just wanted to say that I'm not a fraud, and Elizabeth Holmes is. Most people agree Elizabeth Holmes is a fraud. That's the thing about frauds is like it's really hard to find one that's like really the fraud. Like, because, and it has to do with that fraud as a term is fraudulent. Like, seriously. It's characteristically, there's a lot of fraud surrounding the word fraud because I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed it. When people try to pin down, like, it's like people try to make it like you're a fraud. If they make it too absolute, like, oh, you're absolutely, there's something wrong with you, which is what I'm talking just my own experience. And that's why my product is sound. It's because ultimately I'm just talking about like words that are related to me or can be applied to me, like describe me. And then I talk about that for an hour. So it's like everything I talk about, I have authority over. My product like clearly works. Elizabeth Holmes had a product that didn't work the entire time. That's what you would have to do to be a fraud. You'd have to be like lying over the top of a horrible secret. Like her case, it's hard to find a fraud that's that absolute. But people think that that's what I am, or they have been. Her product didn't work the entire time. But being a fraud is like people. And what I'm saying is just that the people who try to make fraud absolute are the frauds. People who are searching for people who are searching for the fraud become the fraud because they're like they don't realize that isn't real. Or it's more like they're not valuing and appreciating. When it comes to me, like people aren't appreciating what I create while all the time they're like, nah, there's something wrong going on over here. Not that everybody does that. Not that like a lot of people do that. Maybe like a couple people. Yeah, not very many people are frauds. Like a couple people will get into the territory of like they're fraud finders. They're like, I know bullshit and it's bullshit is over here, because like they think they take sensational cases like Elizabeth Holmes. They think that happens in real life or something. It's not. It's just like rare to find a fraud. It's just like so relative, you know. That's the point that I'm making. It's so fraudulence happens so relatively. Like I have like 10,000 listens on this podcast. You can check my official page. I think my official page says like I have 8,600 listens, but that doesn't include the views I have on YouTube. But more importantly, I used to host this on SoundCloud, and I had thousands. I want to say I had like 10,000 listens over on SoundCloud. SoundCloud didn't have as high of a standard for a listen as the Anchor or as the Spotify that I'm hosting it on now. So like those 8,700 listens I have on Spotify are like unique listens. Like those are real listens. SoundCloud, I probably had 10,000 listens on there before that. I lost all of those when I moved my podcast over. But like some of them were who knows what numbers. Like so the numbers were a little bit faker on SoundCloud than they are on the one I host now. But I have 10,000 listens at least. I put my videos on Rumble have some thousand total views, and then my videos on YouTube have some 1,000 views if you total all of them up and whatever. But I'm a fraud in comparison to somebody who has 100,000 listens on their podcast. But in comparison to somebody who has never made a podcast and says I'm a podcaster, I mean, in comparison to somebody who only made 5 episodes on their podcast and they can technically say I'm a podcaster or was, I'm less a fraud than that person. Because it's not like, it's just a lie to say you're a fraud, because people are only relatively a fraud. You're not you're trying to make it this absolute thing, like, oh, we caught the villain, or like I'm citizen's arrest. Like I'm the smart. I'm really smart. I have great intuition. I can smell bullshit from a mile away. Like people that do that are the frauds. Because there isn't an absolute fraud, and it's unlikely. It's just like happens relatively. There's no such thing, you know. It happens so relatively because you're just talking about success. You're just talking about like money. Like you pretend to have money but you don't. You pretend to have value but you don't. You know, that person, whatever it is, does have some value somewhere. So they're only relatively a fraud. Those people are just appreciating the lesser amounts of value that a person is producing to call them that. Or they think like Enron is a thing like everywhere because there's like sensational cases of it. It's just really rare that somebody would be like 100% a fraud like Enron, where it's like, I think Enron like had no value at all. But they are, you know, there must just be something, there's got to be something really exciting for people that they like think that that's a possibility. Because it's like, I guess, could that happen for a person? Like, can a person, well, like that's what Elizabeth Holmes is. She's like the Enron of human beings. But it's because Enron there wasn't like a lightning rod galvanizer individual person heading it up that we can blame for all of that. Like Theranos is very much like Enron. But what I'm saying is like, can Enron be a person just around you? Like that somebody can be that 100% fraudulent. Like, does that happen very much? I think that it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, that person is putting out something, even if it's not what you think that it is. But can somebody have, like, at the end of the day, have no value like Enron did? Like, can that happen in a person? Where they're just like, this is what I do. And then, I don't think that it really happened. But I'm just saying, like, fraud is fraud. fraudulent. You're looking for a fraud. Fraud disintegrates in very many levels of relative success. There's no such thing as fraud. It's fake. It happens like sensationally. Like there's a lot of press. I mean, maybe that's like an individual kind of trait. Be a fraud. You're not a fraud anymore when you achieve... Because like people would say that Jake Paul was a fraud. Maybe. Even now. You're like, why do they hate him? It kind of has to do with haterism. Saying that somebody is a fraud, absolutely. It's like the people who are haters, absolutely. You're like, all that they can do is hate you, your position in life. That people who have Trump derangement syndrome towards Trump. They're like, it's that similar idea of like trying to find the fraud, or saying like, well, there's something up with Trump. At the end of the day, he's actually a bullshitter. When, like, it's crazy that people can do that when he was already the president, and they'll be like, he's a liar, he's a fraud, he's a con man. He was the 45th president. What does success mean if we seriously tolerate that argument in this world, in this nation? Like, you can go online and say that shit, and people are like, well, I mean, you have a point. Trump is kind of a con man. He was the 45th president of the nation. Like, why? That's not acceptable. It's the same. That shouldn't be acceptable at all. It's just people hate individualism. They fucking hate when somebody does that. They're calling them a fraud. Like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift sucks, and we hate her now. Now she's horrible. After, like, 16 years of whatever, like 15 to 20 years of putting out hit songs and being like, and now she's like on top of the world, and people are like, she's a fraud. Doesn't make any sense. Why is that tolerated? Because people be like, she's the shittiest dancer. I mean, I get it. I get that. She's bad at dancing, and people just like to make fun. People like that joke. That is a funny joke, that like Taylor Swift's bad at dancing. Like, that's hilarious. But because she's got to go on tour and like do this concert, and like then there's like instrumental breaks, and she's got to like dance, but she's not like a dancer, you know. That's hilarious that she's bad at dancing. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, yes, to be like, yeah, she sucks or whatever. She's a liar just because they see her like dancing in the booth at the Chiefs game. They're like, oh, she's faking it. You know, when she's been like entirely wildly successful at the world that we all live in, at life, at the world, at the shit that's in where you are in front of you. She's like forever more successful than probably you or I or anyone. Like, the likelihood of you being as successful as her is so impossible. She's achieved impossible levels of fame. What are we doing here? What are we doing in the world? Those are just Christians that say that. It's just Christians that hate people making a name for themselves in the world. It's only a Christian that, like, Tucker Carlson does it. Tucker Carlson will be like, she's just trash because what matters is my Lord and Savior, you know? Like, it's only people who are ignoring the life right in front of them and saying there's some eternity after this that matters. Those are the only people that can say something like that. But it's like tolerated. That's tolerated in the world. Like, well, I guess you have a point. Taylor Swift does suck, you know. That's fine. Because that's bullshit. Bullshit is what I'm saying. Well, why do people get on their fucking high horse, like, pointing out bullshit all the time, but they don't give a fuck about commercials? We're all just sitting around watching all these commercials, Nothing but crap, nothing but illogical nonsense happening in these scenarios that they present in these commercials. It's all just like fucking, it's all an acid trip, but nobody has a single fucking complaint about that. Meanwhile, oh, Taylor Swift, the most successful female artist like in human history. That's she's a liar. She's a liar. Like, you know, it's not bullshit isn't the problem. Nonsense isn't the problem. Theories, because that's what's presented to these commercials are like a theory, like a funny situation that, and the more that they tie it to reality, where it's like not completely nonsensical, it's the more laughs that it'll get. People like will respond to if it is relatable, this like ridiculous scenario that they present in a commercial. So like it's okay for them to try to be real, but not, I guess, I don't know why. Not somebody who doesn't already have the platform. It's just popularity. Like a corporate entity that puts out a commercial that they have enough money to do that. They're like, oh, we believe in your standards enough. You got to this point that you're putting out this bullshit in front of us. That's fine. If you have a lot of money behind it, then we know that you did something right. It's just truth is popularity. If you're not already popular, people are like, that's wrong. That's false. We're not going to listen to your complaint as an individual about your neighbor because you're a liar, you know. You didn't even come. People be like, you didn't come to the right conclusions to have this hatred when it's too specific a hatred. So then you have to like dissolve it, whatever. You have to put the energy of that hatred into like, I hate the liberals or something. Then people will be like, okay, that's fine. Then people won't be like, we don't believe you. You hating your neighbor is you were wrong. You don't know because we're all the same here. You don't get to have your own hatreds. That's why it's more individualistic to be mean, more capitalist to be mean. Because you have to say like, I'm a better or I'm different to say that something they're doing is unlikable or like I have a hatred. Because they are doing something that sucks. You know, there's just not enough press for like unliking things. What are the top 10 things you dislike the most? Who are the 5 worst politicians ever? You know, like we should be able to come to a consensus about that. But people don't really like meanness, and so I don't know if it's everybody, but I feel like there's an attitude to say you didn't arrive at the right conclusions, to be angry with your own individual hatreds, whatever. But as long as it's communal, where it's like, well, we all know that you can hate the liberals, then it's fine. But like, I guess I'm talking about propaganda and the power of propagandizing and propagandize yourself. Be who you are, be what you are, do what you have to do. Make a U-turn at a no U-turn light. I'm a bad guy. I put bad into the world. Something like that. No snappy ending today, but tune in next time. And maybe there will be. I feel like I should say something propagandizing to end. Whatever. Fuck me. Fuck me and my dumb little trying to put a perfect bow on some bullshit. Because I'm a goon like that sometimes, you know. Look, sometimes I could be a goon, sometimes I could be a fraud, but thanks for listening. Bye.